Imagine standing in the produce aisle surrounded by the usual suspects: glossy spinach, uniform kale, the predictable greens of daily life. Then your eyes catch them: tiny, tight globes of green, stacked like marbles in a mesh bag. The label reads, Brussels sprouts. For a split second, you're 6 years old again, staring at a plate of bitter, sulphur-smelling mush, praying for the meal to end. It was the ultimate dinner table villain. But look at the world now. That same vegetable is suddenly everywhere, charred to perfection, drizzled with balsamic glaze, and topped with crispy bacon in the city's finest restaurants. It's no longer a punishment, it's a craving. So what actually changed? Did your grown-up taste buds finally surrender, or did the vegetable itself undergo a secret revolution? Today, we're peeling back the layers of this tiny green mystery to find out how a childhood nightmare became a modern-day masterpiece.
Stay curious about the simple things. I'm Edward, and this is QC Project Simple Thing.
At first glance, they looked like miniature cabbages, unfinished versions of a larger story. But the truth is, a Brussels sprout is not a baby that never grew up. It is a distinct, mature masterpiece of botanical engineering. Along with broccoli, kale, and cauliflower, it belongs to the Brassica oleracea family, a single, versatile species that has spent centuries disguising itself on our plates. Think of it as a family of specialists. Broccoli is the flower, cabbage is the head, and kohlrabi is the stem. But Brussels sprouts, they are the buds. Each one is a compact, tightly layered miracle designed by nature to unfurl into more leaves until we decide to harvest them early. They don't grow on vines or underground. They grow upward like a leafy green tower. A single sturdy stalk can hold 40 of these vibrant buttons stacked in a vertical parade of life. When you eat a Brussels sprout, you aren't eating an immature plant. You're eating a bud that nature meant for the sky, but we chose for the table. Names usually tell us what something is, but this name tells us where it's from. Brussels sprouts aren't named after a famous chef or a secret technique. They're named after a city. As early as the 13th century, farmers in the region we now call Belgium began cultivating these tight, stalk-grown buds. By the 1500s, they had become the botanical soul of Brussels. When they finally travelled across Europe, they didn't just carry their flavour, they carried their origin. Those sprouts from Brussels simply became Brussels sprouts. There is a small, quiet quirk in the language here. In English, the S belongs to the city, but the vegetable itself is almost always plural. You rarely see a single sprout standing alone. They arrive in clusters, in piles, in a collective defiance of the plate. It's fitting, isn't it? Because the story of why we once hated them isn't a single reason either. It's a pile of history, chemistry, and misunderstood craft. Most things in nature shrink away from the cold, but Brussels sprouts wait for it. While other vegetables surrender to the first frost, this plant uses the freezing air as a catalyst for a secret chemical alchemy. To protect its cells from turning into ice, the sprout strategically converts its bland starches into rich, complex sugars. It is a desperate act of survival that results in a gift for us, a vegetable that is naturally sweeter, kinder, and stripped of its bitterness. The colder the world gets, the more generous the sprout becomes. This is why a true winter harvest is the gold standard of flavour. But where does this sweetness hide? Not in the soil, but within a remarkable green tower. Unlike the cabbage that rests its weight on the earth, Brussels sprouts are architects of the vertical. They grow upward on a sturdy, wood-like stalk that can reach a metre high. Each sprout is a tightly wrapped bud, a button of potential tucked into the junction where a broad leaf meets the central pillar. A single stalk is a standing parade of 40 tiny masterpieces, all waiting for the bite of the frost to unlock their soul. So, if nature works this hard to refine them, why do so many of us remember them as a sulphurous nightmare? The answer lies in our kitchens and a century of misunderstood chemistry. Within every Brussels sprout lies a hidden defense system, compounds called glucosinolates. In nature, they are a shield. On our plates, they are a volatile secret. When these compounds meet heat, they break down into sulphur, the same element that gives garlic its soul and onions their bite. Sulphur isn't the enemy, but it demands a stage. And for decades, we gave it the worst stage possible, a pot of boiling water. Boiling is a slow, wet execution for a sprout. It does two things at once. It shatters the delicate texture and lures the sulphur out into the air, creating that infamous steamy stench of cabbage water. In that soggy environment, bitterness becomes the only survivor, drowning out every other subtle flavor. To a child whose taste buds are evolutionary sensors tuned to detect poison in the form of bitterness, this wasn't just a side dish, it was a biological threat. The smell alone was enough to turn a vegetable into a lifelong villain. But here is the twist that most people miss. Even if you were a master chef back then, you were fighting a losing battle. The sprouts of the past were genetically different. They were, quite literally, more bitter than the ones we know today. Why do Brussels sprouts taste better now? Most people think their own palate simply matured, but the truth is the vegetable itself changed. In the 1990s, agricultural scientists looked at this stubborn green villain and realized the problem wasn't just in the kitchen, it was in the DNA. Older varieties were chemically louder, packed with high levels of bitter compounds that felt like a direct assault on the tongue. Instead of masking that bitterness with heavy sauces, we did something more profound. We redesigned it. Through decades of patient crossbreeding, we dialed down the aggression while keeping the nutrients intact. The modern Brussels sprout is a masterpiece of balance, milder, sweeter, and far less likely to punch you with bitterness on the first bite. It's a rare story where the world didn't just change its mind, the world changed the object itself. The sprout improved in the silence of the fields, and then, finally, our cooking caught up. If the fields changed the DNA, the oven changed the reputation. Roasting Brussels sprouts at high heat is the single move that flipped them from a dinner table villain to a gourmet favorite. High heat doesn't dilute flavor, it concentrates it. It drives off surface moisture, crisps the outer leaves, and forces the natural sugars to caramelize. Suddenly, the sprout doesn't taste like cabbage water, it tastes nutty, savory, and crackles with a hint of sweetness. The secret lies in one small step, the cut. By slicing them in half, you expose a wider surface to the dry heat, allowing the edges to toast while the center stays tender. In the past, boiling made them waterlogged and mushy. Today, roasting makes them firm and resilient. The bitterness hasn't vanished, it's just been reframed. It's no longer the whole story, it's a background note, like the pleasant bite in dark chocolate. This isn't magic, it's just chemistry finally meeting a better vegetable. Even with its modern glow-up, the Brussels sprout hasn't lost its edge. It's not just a trendy appetizer, it's a nutritional powerhouse, packed with vitamin C for the immune system and vitamin K for bone health. It offers a density of fiber and antioxidants that most comfort foods can't match. It's low in calories, but surprisingly filling, a rare combination in a world of empty snacks. But let's be clear, this isn't a miracle food. It's simply a functional one. As a proud member of the cruciferous family, it has been studied for everything from heart health to cellular protection. But the real victory isn't in the lab, it's on the plate. It's a vegetable that is legitimately useful, especially now that we've finally learned to cook it in a way that makes us crave it again. Why did a vegetable from a small Belgian corner end up in Asian stir-fries and American gourmet kitchens? The answer lies in its polite bitterness. Most foods try to dominate the plate, but the modern Brussels sprout is a culinary chameleon. Its mild, sophisticated edge acts as a blank canvas for the world's boldest flavors: the salt of bacon, the acid of lemon, or the deep umami of soy sauce. It doesn't just adapt, it amplifies. In fact, the most radical way to eat it is to forget the heat entirely. When shaved into paper-thin ribbons and tossed raw with olive oil, a hidden chemical transformation occurs. The structural fibers soften, turning a tough bud into a gentle, crunchy salad. It is cabbage that has learned to be elegant. Whether it's sautéed in European butter or tossed in an Eastern wok, the lesson is the same. Any food can be redeemed if you replace force with patience. It's proof that a little science and a lot less boiling can turn a childhood ghost into a global icon. I want to give you the 10-second rule. The next time you're standing in front of those mesh bags, don't just look at the green. I want you to feel the resistance. Spend 10 seconds performing the squeeze and seal test. First, pick up a sprout and give it a firm, gentle squeeze. It should feel like a hard marble, not a hollow sponge. A dense, heavy sprout means the leaves are tightly packed, protecting the moisture and the natural sugars inside. If it yields too easily, it's already losing its soul to the air. Second, look at the base, the seal where it was cut from the stalk. It should be bright and clean, not yellow or shriveled. In those 10 seconds, you aren't just buying a vegetable, you're auditing its freshness. A tight, bright sprout is a promise of sweetness. A loose, dull one is a warning of bitterness. Remember, if it feels like a rock, it will roast like a gem. So, was it the vegetable that failed us, or our own lack of patience? The story of the Brussels sprout reminds us that even the most hated things deserve a second look. It survived the cold of Belgian fields, a genetic redesign in the 90s, and a century of boiling water to finally find its place on our modern plates. It proves that with a little science and the right heat, bitterness can become beauty. It's a reminder that progress isn't always about finding something new. Sometimes it's about rediscovering what we've had all along, but simply didn't know how to treat. If this journey from villain to icon changed the way you see your next meal, show your support by hitting the like button and subscribing to our channel. Your engagement helps us keep peeling back the layers of the world's simplest things. And tell us in the comments, which hated food should we try to redeem next? Your suggestion might just be our next story. Thanks for watching.
Stay curious about the simple things. I'm Edward, and this is QC Project Simple Thing.
And turn on notifications so you don't miss the simple things in everyday life. Because what you see is never the whole story. There's always something deeper beneath the surface. See you in the next one.